Hi, I'm Brian Van from SportBikeTrackGear.com, and today we're going to do a video product and installation review on the LSL Superbike handlebar riser kit. The motorcycle that we're going to do this on today is a 2007 SV650S. This is the SV650 model that comes with the clip-on style handlebars. The reason we are looking to make this change is we want to make the bike more ergonomically correct for the rider that rides this motorcycle. Essentially the challenge is now there's too much pressure on the wrist because of the riding position the clip-ons dictate. So what we're going to do with this kit is we are effectively going to take the clip-ons from where they are now to about here. There's also a lot of adjustment built in. You're able to rotate the handlebars like so you can really dial in the reach. Got a lot of different bits and pieces to pull this off. We've got the aluminum tubular handlebar. On this motorcycle, we're going to have to replace the top triple clamp, and there are also some clamps that then attach the top triple clamp and grab hold of the Superbike handlebar. Each kit is unique. Each motorcycle is unique, and the project will vary from bike to bike to bike. What we're going to show you here today will be specific to this model only. Your project could be different. This is a kit that's offered for a massive variety of motorcycles. Even Suzuki GSXR 600s, 1000s. You're able to take a race bike style bike that Suzuki puts on the street, or Honda or Yamaha, and turn it into a very comfortable daily rider with just a simple installation of a kit like this. For our SV650 today, we're going to have to replace the top triple clamp. We're going to have to replace the handlebars, also the brake lines. Each one of these kits, on our website, we will note what the kit comes with. And it'll give you an idea of how involved the project will or will not be. Some kits you don't have to replace the triple clamp. You'll notice we have the motorcycle on the Pitbull hybrid headlift stand right now. We need to be supporting it from the bottom of the triple tree. You can do this without having that stand. You could pull this project off. That makes it a little bit easier, and obviously here in the shop we have all the bits and pieces to do that, so we're going to choose the path of least resistance. There's going to be cuts and breaks in this video because we can't show you the whole thing because the project is going to take probably around an hour or so to do. Okay, and we don't want to create an hour-long video, so stay with us. We're going to begin to disassemble the motorcycle, and then we'll get into the project and we'll really focus on what we feel are the key elements. Okay, now we're going to begin to disassemble the motorcycle. One decision you need to make as you begin this project is grips. What are we going to do with the grips? Okay, this particular rider really likes his stock grips. So our goal is going to be to reuse this side. Remember, this one stays with the throttle tube. No concern there. This side, we need to be able to get that one off. We're going to use an air compressor to do that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go after now just the stock bar ends. Those thread right on. Phillips screwdriver, simple tool. The majority of the tools that you're going to need for this job are very, very basic hand tools. The only tool that I really found that would be a little bit exotic is there is a tamper-proof Torx bit that holds the ignition lock set onto the top triple clamp. If you're unfamiliar with that, we'll show you that in a little more detail as we go. So that might be one of the things that you're going to have to look for before you begin the job. Dealing with the grip on the other side, we fortunately have the advantage of having an air compressor here in the shop, okay? And that is going to help because a little bit of air underneath the grip is a great way to remove and or install a grip. First thing I'm going to do is just kind of work it around. I want to see if it's loose at all, which it is a little bit loose. We'll probably use just a little bit of grip glue. For the controls, okay, the easiest way to get to the screws for the starter switch, your turn signal, your high beam switch is going to be when the clip-ons are off the motorcycle, okay? So don't really go after those hard right now. What I'm going to do is just going to go ahead and loosen up the clutch and the brake. I'm going to go ahead and go after the top triple clamp bolt now. Okay, this particular one, we're going to use a large Craftsman socket. It's 1.25 inches is what's going to work out for this bike. Big 1/2-inch ratchet. One tip would be, you don't want to hit the gas tank, okay? So I'm going to loosen it up from the right side of the motorcycle. That way I'm pulling away as I break loose this big bolt. From here now, what we want to do is we want to go after the top triple clamp fasteners, the fasten to the fork tube, as well as the clip-on mounting bolts. Just standard hand tools here, just 12 millimeters. Just loosen the pinch bolts up a bit. Now to get our triple clamp out. This could be a little bit different for every bike. Some of them you may need to just tap a little bit with a rubber mallet. This one, as you can see, I was able to pull right off. Okay, now let's have a look at that tamper-proof Torx bit that holds the lock set on. Like I said, this could be one of the hiccups where if you have a good set of common tools, you might not have this bit. They are readily available at pretty much any respectable tool store, okay? And you can see all it is a Torx bit that has a relief in the center so that it works with the tamper-proof Torx, okay? Look into that before you begin this project, because that could be a hang-up that sends you out shopping for a tool, right? This particular one is a T40, a tamper-proof T40. Now, instructions. I touched on the instructions, but let's go back to that. Now that we have some of the rough disassembly done, okay? The instructions break down the recommended bar. We have that, right? The brake hoses. This one needs new brake hoses. They're included in the kit. Nice Spiegler stainless brake hoses. Cable routing. It tells you where to route the throttle and the clutch cable. Fairing and or fairing screen on this bike need no operation. You gotta love how the German translates to English. Now there are some more detailed instructions at the bottom. To reroute the throttle cable and wiring harness, you need to remove the seat, lift up the fuel tank. Remove the airbox, disconnect the connector to the handlebar controls, reroute the cable over the frame tube, and connect them again. This goes on, you know, we've looked at that more. What we're gonna do is we're gonna begin that process. We need to get the seat off the motorcycle. We need to get this tank up. Every bike is different. Just because you have to perform this operation on this bike doesn't mean you will on yours, but that's something you're gonna wanna be prepared for. This isn't one of those real quick bolt-ons, like say a fender eliminator bracket where a couple of Allens, 20 minutes, and your bike is totally transformed. This is a project that you want to leave probably for a Saturday and be ready to really dig into it, take your time, and do a good job. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to begin the process to get the seat and the fuel tank moved around so we can have access to the cables and such so that we're able to make adjustments that they have recommended. On this SV, it's really not that tough of a process. To get to the seat, we need to remove these side covers. We've got a shouldered Allen. Then we also have a couple of rubber grommets. Then we're going to use a larger Allen. I believe that's going to be a 6. Cut. Okay, gas tank is up, airbox is off. There's a couple of things that I want to show you right now. One is anytime fuel injected or carbureted that you're going to have an airbox off a motor, you're going to have an opening here to the intake system. Take a couple of shop rags, tuck them in there. That way, in case you drop a screw, which ironically, as I was doing this project, we had a screw that fell out through the bottom. It had slid out of the throttle housing. This just prevents anything from going in there. It is a great preventative step. Okay, as per the instructions, we needed to reroute both wiring harnesses and the throttle cables to get enough slack to work with this brand new handlebar position. Remember, we have come both up and back. And that puts higher demands on length for the throttle cables as well as the harnesses for the switch pods on both sides. Per the instructions on this motorcycle, initially these throttle cables were routed through the left side of the frame tube, and they ran around the outside of the steering head and up here. That's a lot of distance for these cables to cover, and if they were routed that way, you would never have enough cable length. Per LSL, what they wanted you to do was to go ahead and pull those through here and reroute those through the right side of the frame, okay, to the right side now of the steering head and now up. You can see we've mocked up the top triple, mocked up the handlebars. We spent some time with the seat back on the bike, really just mocking this up to make sure that we had the throttle working perfectly with a good, clean snap. Remember, turn the handlebars to both the right and to the left, fully to the stop. Once we had the handlebars where we liked them, just snugged everything up, sat on the motorcycle, turned it to the stop, rotated the throttle and released it to make sure we had a good, clean snap back. Quite honestly, we spent a lot of time on that. Probably more time on this one thing than we have any other operation in this installation so far, because this and the brakes are the two most important things that you're going to deal with. If that throttle does not return properly, you run the risk of it binding. If that throttle binds, we all know things go bad, you can have an accident. I'm going to say now, and it calls us out in the instructions, if you're not comfortable with any of this stuff, right, take the bike to a licensed mechanic and have them do it. It's really critical. This is a pretty sizable project. I mean, this is far beyond, like I said earlier, a fender eliminator. So be prepared to do the things we talked about. Most importantly, take your time. When we come back, we're gonna have the airbox all buttoned up, the tank down, okay? We're going now to mount our lock set to the top triple, get the top triple buttoned up, and then we're going to get the brake lines on and put the finishing touches on our LSL Superbike handlebar riser kit on the SV650. All right, here we go. We are ready to recap our LSL Superbike handlebar conversion kit install and review on this 2007 Suzuki SV650S. Obviously, there's a lot of steps that we had taken off camera. We're going to recap those for you right now. I want to start with what I view as the most important one. This is a big safety item. It is throttle cable operation. Dead center, you'll notice we have smooth motion to apply the throttle and a good snappy return. That's really the thing you want to look for the most, is a good snappy return. You also need to turn the handlebars stop to stop and recheck that and make sure it's the same, because remember, if you have any throttle cable binding, as it pulls on the cable, it's going to restrict the motion of the cable in the housing. Rotate it all the way to the right side. Perfect. We spent a lot of time on that. Torque. It has torque specs included in the instructions. We did pull out the torque wrench for this for certain aspects. For me, the big one was really the top clamps here that retain the Superbike style handlebar. What you want to do when you're tightening these down is you're going to notice we still have two gaps here. You want to try and keep those gaps relatively even, nice even space, while still getting proper torque. The recommended torque was 20 Newton meters. We used a handy iPhone, converted that to foot-pounds, and then used our foot-pounds wrench. Other things that we had to deal with. We spoke about the wiring harnesses, okay? We had to gain a little bit of length with these wiring harnesses for the switch pods. We showed you how we did that with the airbox removed for both sides, okay? Switch pods. Each of these switch pods has a locator tab in it. What it does is you drill a hole in the handlebar and it just keeps the switch pod in the proper spot so it's not rotating around on the handlebars. Quite honestly, on a race bike, I typically take that locator pin off of the plastic switch pod. We didn't do this because this is a street bike. I wanted to retain the use of that. What we do to do that is, first thing I want to do is I want to get my spacing right here from the grip to the switch pod to the clutch perch assembly, okay? Once I've done that, I look at where the locator pin is. I'm able to gauge the distance. I actually even measured it. I marked things with a Sharpie. Then we pulled out the hammer, the center punch, because you really need to center punch that, and then of course a drill bit that was large enough to accommodate the locator pin on the switch pod. Was able to drill on this bike. The holes were literally from the top down. I was able to drill, and don't be afraid to drill right into the handlebar. It's got good enough thickness that one hole in there is not going to reduce the strength of the bars. You only want to drill the hole one time. Measure twice, drill once. That's really important. So take the time to mock this up and set it up. Get your distances right before you drill those holes. We also torqued at the top of the fork tubes on the triple clamp. We torqued the big nut here as well. The switch, you're not going to, for the lock cylinder assembly, you are not going to reuse those tamper-proof Torx bits. They provide new spacers, new bolts. What I did do there is I went ahead and I used some red Loctite. You really want to keep that in there. Handlebar ends, they're not part of the kit, right? That's something you pick up additionally. The LSL slimline handlebar ends really look trick in here. They slide right in. You tighten up the Allen, it expands inside the bar, gives it a really good, clean, finished look. Brake fluid reservoir relocation, okay? This now uses a spacer and a longer bolt on the top bolt for the clamp for the master cylinder. The bracket, you then use one of the stock bolts to attach the reservoir to. I did put a little bit of blue Loctite there because you really want to keep the reservoir in place. We replaced the brake lines. This particular kit included a Spiegler stainless steel 2-line brake kit, which is the most common one that we sell, is the 2-line kit. If the motorcycle requires that for this project, it will be included in the kit. And remember, once again, you can see that on the website. We try to spell that out very, very clearly. This was a great opportunity for us to change the brake fluid on the SV. We took a look at the brake pads. They looked fine. They didn't require any service at this point. Great chance, bled it all. We used a power bleeder, which was nice. We have the air compressor here, so you're able to use this, bleed the brakes very completely and thoroughly. You can still do that without the use of that. We have a brake fluid bleeding video on the site, as well as our YouTube channel. And we also have a brake line installation series that lives on our website, as well as our YouTube channel. If you need any help with the brake lines and the bleeding of the brakes, please refer to those videos. They're a great resource of information to help you get that done. Now, look what we've done. We've taken a motorcycle, right, that had clip-on handlebars, okay? And we have raised it to look at the riding position for me now. I mean, literally, there is no pressure on my hands, very comfortable. So we've taken a sports bike that would normally require a little more of this and turned it into, let's call it a bit of a street touring bike, a sport touring bike, but it's still a cool motorcycle available for R6s, Gixxer 600s, 750s, 1000s, not just a bike like an SV. So you can take a true leader bike and put this same kit on there and just have a lot more ergonomic comfort than you ever would have with the low clip-ons. This is a big project. I'm not gonna lie to you and act like, you know what, you're just gonna take this out of the box and in 3 minutes it's gonna be on the bike and you're gonna be riding. This was a project. We spent a lot more time on this today, arguably, than we thought we were going to. We underestimated it a little bit. Take your time. If you're not comfortable with things like the Airbox, rerouting throttle cables, rerouting wiring harnesses, making sure things aren't going to chafe, all those particular details, but you still need to change the ergonomics of your bike so you can actually ride it, buy the kit, make an appointment with your local dealer, have a licensed mechanic install it. Hopefully this has helped you find a way to change the ergonomics of your bike and make it more fun to ride and less painful. This is the LSL Superbike Handlebar Riser Kit. I'm Brian Van, sportbiketrackgear.com.